Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to provide you with an update as to what's happening in Turkey.
Tayyip Erdogan is staying on as president of Turkey after winning the runoff presidential election on Sunday with just over 52% of the vote. It was seen as the toughest political challenge yet to his increasingly authoritarian rule, now set to enter its third decade.
Kimse kaybetmeyecek demiştik.
Speaking to supporters outside his home in Istanbul before the final results were released, he said, "Turkey is the only winner today." Thousands of jubilant Erdogan supporters celebrated in Turkey's streets.
We are very happy. We think Erdogan deserved to win. That was what had to happen. There couldn't have been another leader in this country.
Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated his, quote, "dear friend" on his victory. The election was seen as one of the most consequential yet for Turkey. The opposition believed it had a strong chance of unseating Erdogan after his popularity was hit by a cost of living crisis. Challenger Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu called it the most unfair election in years, but did not dispute the outcome. Erdogan, who is the head of the Islamist-rooted AK party, appealed to voters with nationalist and conservative rhetoric. His record includes having redrawn domestic, economic, security, and foreign policy in the NATO member country of 85 million people. The prospect of 5 more years of his rule is a major blow to opponents who accuse him of undermining democracy as he has amassed even more power, a charge he denies.
So what does the outcome of this election mean? Well, President Erdogan has been in power in Turkey since 2003, so the past 20 years. And the fact that he's now been voted back into power for another 5 years means that we're going to see a continuation of the economic policies that Turkey has been following. So let's have a look at what's been happening with inflation and the currency before we go on to talk about the relationship with Russia, Sweden's application for NATO, and what's likely to happen in Turkey over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. This chart shows the movement in the rate of inflation in Turkey over the last 5 years. And as you can see from this chart, at the end of 2021, which is when the authorities introduced the contrarian policy of deciding to raise interest rates to tackle high levels of inflation, inflation started to take off. And if we look at this chart, which shows the movement over the last 12 months, you can see that this time last year, inflation was running at 75% in Turkey. It continued to rise to a peak level of almost 86% in October 2022. However, over the course of the last 6 months, inflation has started to come down. However, one thing to note about this chart is that the bottom of these bar charts doesn't end at 0. The base level here starts at 40%. So you can see that the current official rate of interest in Turkey is just under 44%. So whilst the trend is moving in the right direction, the absolute level of inflation is still extremely high. And we look at this table, which looks at the rate of inflation for the G20, which are the 20 largest economies in the world. You can see that Turkey has the second highest rate of inflation. The only country with a higher rate is Argentina, where inflation is now above 100%. And if you're interested in finding out what's going on in Argentina, please check out the recent video that I posted. But if you look at the Turkey situation at 44%, it's over 5 times higher than the country with the next highest rate of inflation, which is the United Kingdom at 8.7%. And if we look at this table, which compares every single country in the world, you can see that Turkey currently has the 11th highest inflation rate in the world. And it's only countries like Lebanon, Venezuela, Syria, Argentina, and Zimbabwe that have higher rates. And if you look further down this list, you can see that Turkey's rate of inflation is actually higher than it is in countries such as Sierra Leone, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Ethiopia, and Egypt, all of whom are going through major economic crises. So just because the rate of inflation is coming down, it doesn't mean that Turkey has solved all of its problems. And in fact, the economy is still sitting on a knife edge. The immediate response to President Erdogan's election win is that the exchange rate for the Turkish lira fell to an all-time low of 20.1 against the US dollar. And this chart shows the movement in the exchange rate against the US dollar over the last 5 years. And you can see that 5 years ago, 1 US dollar traded for 4.6 Turkish lira. Today, it's more than 20. And the fall in the value of the Turkish lira has been particularly pronounced over the last 18 months, since Turkey decided to follow the contrarian policy of lowering interest rates at a time of high inflation. As we've just seen, this caused inflation to increase rapidly, and the flip side of that rapid inflation was a fall in the value of the lira. And one of the major challenges that Turkey is facing is that it's a net importer. Turkey has to import large amounts of oil and gas and food. And all of those commodities are priced in the international markets. So the exchange rate for the Turkish lira against foreign currency is really important. And as the value of the lira falls, that means that proportionately things become a lot more expensive for the people of Turkey who are being paid in lira. And if you follow the channel, you'll be fully aware that there is a high level of dollarization in Turkey right now, which means that a lot of the people in Turkey prefer to do their dealings in US dollars rather than Turkish lira. And the reason for that is that they have more confidence in the long-term value of the dollar. If you're holding all of your assets in Turkish lira and the currency continues to devalue, that means that your personal net worth is diminishing year on year. And when you combine that with high levels of inflation, which means that prices are rising and therefore the value of your lira in the stores is a lot less, this means that the cost of living is rising and the standard of living is falling. So in order to try to counter all of those economic impacts, the people of Turkey are preferring to deal with US dollars rather than Turkish lira. And of course, this quickly becomes a vicious circle because the less attractive lira is, the more its value will fall, and so it goes on. President Erdogan has a strong relationship with President Putin of Russia, who was quick to congratulate him on his win. In a message published by the Kremlin, President Putin said, "The election victory was a natural result of your selfless work as the head of the Republic of Turkey, clear evidence of the support of the Turkish people for your efforts to strengthen state sovereignty and conduct an independent foreign policy. We highly appreciate your personal contribution to the strengthening of friendly Russian-Turkish relations and mutually beneficial cooperation in various areas." Putin went on to say that he attached great importance to joint projects such as Turkey's Akuyu nuclear plant, which is being built by Russian state energy group Rosatom, and a gas hub which Putin has proposed in Turkey. Turkey is a net importer of energy products and is reliant on large amounts of natural gas that are being supplied directly from Russia. And it's now been revealed that Turkey has deferred the payment of a $600 million natural gas bill until 2024. And this arrangement is the first such postponement under a deal announced recently that underlines the deepening ties between Turkey and Russia. Under the terms of the agreement, up to $4 billion in Turkish energy payments to Russia may be postponed for at least 12 months. Turkey's energy import bill hit a record $100 billion in 2022, and in the year to February 23, it imported 39% of its total 53.5 billion cubic meters of natural gas directly from Russia. This deal underlines ties between Russia and Turkey, with the closeness between President Putin and President Erdogan, allowing them to hold frequent talks on issues ranging from energy to the wars in Ukraine and Syria. Turkey has sought to strike a balance in the war between Russia and Ukraine, opposing Western sanctions on Moscow, whilst also providing arms to Ukraine. Turkey have also helped broker a deal that allowed the resumption of Ukrainian grain exports. In terms of energy supply, Russia's state nuclear energy company, Rosatom, has built a $20 billion 4,800 megawatt nuclear power plant in Akuyu. And President Erdogan has previously suggested that Turkey would like to develop further its cooperation with Russia in terms of defence and energy. Now, one of the biggest political issues that Turkey is facing right now is its ongoing veto of Sweden's application to join NATO. If you've been following the channel, you'll be fully aware that in the summer of 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Finland and Sweden both applied formally to join NATO. And the main driver for this application is that Finland shares a border of around 800 miles directly with Russia, and Sweden is a direct neighbour of Finland and one of the last major European countries that isn't party to NATO. Now, in order for both of these countries to gain membership, all 30 countries had to vote in favour, a unanimous vote was required, and Turkey came out and stated that they were not supportive of either Finland or Sweden joining and accused both countries of harbouring terrorists that were involved in the coup attempt against President Erdogan in 2016. Now, after a period of prolonged negotiation, Turkey subsequently agreed to vote in favour of Finland joining. So Finland has now joined NATO, which officially has 31 members. However, President Erdogan and Turkey's official stance with Sweden is that they are still vetoing that vote. They are not approving Sweden's application. President Erdogan claims that Sweden is sheltering a number of terrorists and is refusing to hand them over to Turkey. And there have also been some highly inflammatory protests in Sweden over the course of the last few months. Following President Erdogan's election win, Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström told Swedish broadcaster SVT that he was due to meet his Turkish counterpart on Thursday the 1st of June at a gathering of NATO foreign ministers in Oslo. However, he later had to update this statement, saying that he'd been informed that Turkey's foreign minister was no longer coming, so there would not be a meeting. However, he went on to say that the meeting would nevertheless take place soon, and that he was looking forward to being able to shift into a higher gear and speed things up now that we know the result of the Turkish elections. So as you might expect, Sweden remain keen to put this matter to bed. However, it remains to be seen exactly what Turkey's official position is. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video to provide you with an update as to what had happened in the Turkish election. If you've been following the channel, you'll know that this is the closest election that President Erdogan has faced in his 20 years in power. And the fact that it had to go to a second runoff vote shows just how close he came to losing his position. However, he's now been re-elected for another 5 years, so it's likely that we will see a continuation of the policies that have been in place over the past 20 years. And as you've seen from today's data, Turkey is still facing some major economic challenges. Inflation has been coming down over the course of the last 6 months, but it's still running above 40%, which is a major problem. And when you combine that with the fact that the Turkish currency has declined in value by almost 90% over the last 10 years and has seen a particularly rapid devaluation over the last 18 months, that represents a major problem for a country that is a net importer. Turkey is having to buy in fuel and food in the international markets, and these are the basic infrastructure for society. And I think it's really interesting to note that the Turkish lira fell to a new all-time low as soon as the election result was announced. And one of the reasons for that is that it's likely that the contrarian policies that have been followed over the last 18 months or so, where interest rates are being lowered at a time of high inflation, are likely to continue, and the currency market's reaction to that is negative. Now, one of the problems that Turkey has faced over recent years is a lack of overseas investment, and it's interesting that President Putin came out and quickly congratulated President Erdogan. And given the fact that we're seeing a seismic change in Russia's trading patterns and its trading partners, it's likely that Russia will want to do more business in Turkey over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And Turkey really has a unique position at the moment because it's a member of NATO and has strong relations with the West, but it's also maintained its strong relations with Russia. So in respect of what's happening in response to the Ukraine war, Turkey has a foot in both camps and has remained very much on the fence. And the fact that Turkey has vetoed Sweden's application to join NATO is an ongoing problem. And I think this is something that the European Union and the West will want quickly put to bed now that President Erdogan has been re-elected. So in terms of what's likely to happen in Turkey over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, it's very likely that we'll see a continuation of what's been happening in the economy. Turkey has been struggling, and unless it can get some major investment from overseas and start generating more revenue and more cash and more foreign currency, it's going to continue to need help. And over the course of the last 6 months or so, that help has been coming from the United Arab Emirates, China and Russia. And it's likely that those relations will continue to strengthen and that Turkey will want to do more business and more trade with those countries. And that potentially could mean that it's pushed further away from the West and more towards the East. So I'll keep you posted on any further news and developments as and when they happen. Hopefully you found today's update useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.